All right there, everyone. The province of Quebec swings to the political right in a massive blow to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. That's what we'll be talking about on today's video. Make sure you get my latest book, The New Nationalism, How the Populist Right is Defeating Globalism and Awakening a New Political Order, free for a limited time as an ebook download on the link below. If you want to understand this amazing turn towards the nationalist populist right going on all over the world. Right now, even in Canada, this book is indispensable for that. It's a quick read, and it's my gift to you free for a limited time at the link below. All right, so the Coalition Avenir Québec, which is the center-right, increasingly nationalist populist party of Quebec, they won a major victory yesterday in the provincial elections, which in effect ended 15 years of liberal rule over the province of Quebec. It was, for all intents and purposes, an absolute blowout. The CAQ, as they're called, appear to have won, if you can believe it, 73 out of 125 seats in the province's legislature. The Liberals were slaughtered. Only about 32 seats were left for them to fill. Again, this is the pattern that we're seeing over and over and over again. The nationalist populist right are winning elections with over 60% majorities throughout the world. It's just absolutely incredible what's going on here. What's so interesting for me is the consistency in all of this. No matter where you go in the world, the major political issues appear to be the same, the major ones now. So the CAQ's leader, François Legault, what do you think he campaigned on? You want to take a guess? I mean, if you're a regular viewer on this channel, and if not, make sure you hit that subscribe button, of course. But if you're a regular viewer of this channel, I mean, you already know the answer. It's like cheating, okay, on a test. He campaigned on cutting immigration. It's a no-brainer, man, given the patterns we've seen emerge all over the world, which, of course, I go over in my new book here, right? In fact, specifically, Legault campaigned on cutting immigration by 10,000 migrants a year, which is, again, very similar to what Matteo Salvini of the League in Italy was campaigning on. He, too, was arguing that Italy needed to lower its migration threshold significantly each year to reach far more sustainable and culturally secure levels of immigration. Legault further argued that those who failed tests on French and Quebec values should be deported within 3 years. Now, again, what's interesting here is that the CAQ is made up of both Quebec nationalists and federalists. It's made up of both those who would support seceding from Canada and those who are unionists, who would oppose such secessionist measures. But the two factions came together. They put down their differences, and they found that they could, in fact, unite around the issue of immigration control. So we're clearly seeing the triumph of the nationalist populist vision for border security going on all over the world, now reaching Canada and providing a solid basis for a comparably solid right-wing coalition. Now, this is actually the second shift to the right that we've seen in Canada over the last few months. Many of you may recall the Ontario elections. The Ontario province is the most populist province in Canada. They held their provincial elections on June 7th when the Progressive Conservative Party under the leadership of Doug Ford was just swept into power. I mean, Ford and his party absolutely trounced the Liberal Party by winning again in a similar fashion, 76 of 124 seats in the provincial legislature. That's, again, over 60% of the parliamentary seats. And what's so amazing in all of this is that Doug Ford ran on a totally anti-Trudeau platform, anti-elite, anti-politically correct. In fact, Ford is often likened to Donald Trump in terms of his style and his policies. Ford himself was ecstatic when Trump won back in November 2016. He was a real big supporter of Trump early on. Well, now he is in the driver's seat. He is now premier of Ontario, and he won his election in very Trumpian fashion. Ford often referred to what he called the radical downtown Toronto elites who rule for their own profit and benefit. He hates the media. He loves to take the fight directly to them. In fact, Ford canceled the traditional bus for journalists that follow politicians' campaign. He basically said, take a hike, get your own ride. If all you're going to do is just follow me around to just be apologists for this corporatist globalist world order, do it on your own time. So now the two top most populist provinces in Canada have both officially turned to the populist right, who are fighting on behalf of restoring the integrity of border security and economic security, which of course are the major nationalist and populist concerns. Now, obviously, this turn to the right in Quebec yesterday was a massive blow to the ultra-liberal, globalist Prime Minister Justin Person-Kind Trudeau. Now, at one level, this is a rebuke of Trudeau's concessions that he agreed to in the replacement of NAFTA with the new USMCA trade deal, where he decided to open up the country's dairy industry to the United States. It's a concession that Quebec's dairy farmers want absolutely nothing to do with. So the USMCA trade deal didn't win Trudeau any fans in Quebec, at least when it comes to its highly protectionist dairy farming industry. But there seems to be something else brewing under the surface here. Analysts have been watching Canada closely after the election of Trudeau to see whether the nation was going to be a beacon of secular liberal globalism, its values of ethnic diversity, LGBT rights, gender equality, unfettered immigration, and the like. And what's so interesting here is that in the midst of this tidal wave of populism going on all over the place, many analysts were saying, don't count Canada as immune from the nationalist populist trends, as we're seeing particularly in Europe and the United States. So just when Trudeau was giving his lofty speeches celebrating Canada's rainbow role in our brave new world, scholars were noticing that a very sizable portion of Canada's population thought quite differently. A study was conducted by the Ecos Research that interviewed more than 12,000 Canadians. So it's a very impressive sampling. It's a margin of error of less than 1%. And they found that Canada was thoroughly fertile ground for a mass populist movement to take hold, largely from the twin senses of economic and cultural insecurity. Again, if you're a regular viewer of this channel, you'll know that the three driving forces behind the wave of nationalist populism going on throughout the world is a shared sense of border insecurity, economic insecurity, and cultural insecurity. And this study found that a significant portion of the Canadian population are prone to two of those three insecurities. In fact, the study found that less than half of those Canadians sampled actually bought into the whole globalist mindset, that open borders are good things, that free trade benefits everyone, that all cultures are equally valuable and meaningful, that all lifestyle values should be celebrated and tolerated, and the like. Folks, this is Canada rejecting all this stuff, right? Less than half of the population actually believes in this globalist propaganda. And so this study, which was conducted before Doug Ford was elected Premier of Ontario, but a year beforehand, this study actually went on to cite Ford as a possible leader of what they saw as a growing populist revolt within the borders of Canada. Moreover, I don't think this should be discounted. We have to remember that the conservative evangelical church in Canada is actually growing in membership by about 2% every year, while the liberal church is shrinking. A study which was published in the academic journal Review of Religious Research focused on 22 mainline Protestant congregations in southern Ontario and found that without exception, the churches that were experiencing growth were the ones who took their historic Christian faith very seriously. They believed and taught the Bible to be the inspired word of God. They affirmed the resurrection of Jesus Christ as the foundation of the church, the moral uniqueness of a Christian worldview, and they affirmed the importance of prayer as the means of engaging the presence of God on a daily basis. And the important point in the study was that there were no exceptions to this. All the growing churches in the study had conservative theology, while by contrast, all the declining churches, they all had liberal, secular theology. And so they found that membership in churches with conservative theology were growing, they were increasing on average by about 2% per year. So it really does appear that we're seeing now the three major undercurrents that are shared by all successful nationalist populist movements throughout the world emerging within Canada. We're seeing a clear concern over border security. We're seeing a clear concern over economic security. And we are seeing a very real concern over cultural security, particularly in the form of a growing social and cultural conservatism in Canada's, or at least driven by Canada's, evangelical churches. And these undercurrents appear to be making their way to the surface with the success of the political right in the elections in Ontario and now, as of yesterday, in Quebec. So we'll obviously be keeping our eyes on how things develop in Canada, but it does appear to be more and more the case that Canada, the great white north, is in fact beginning to turn to the nationalist populist right and may just yet take its rightful place in the rising of a new conservative age. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Click on our Patreon link below and become a monthly supporter of this channel. We are being demonetized by YouTube, and we can really use your help. So go on over to Patreon, become a monthly supporter, and help us to continue to analyze current events in light of conservative trends so that you can personally and professionally flourish.